Bottom Line View's top 10 quarterbacks of the 2019 NFL Draft. I'm Mitch, joined by Dilly Vanilli. We are going to go through each and every one of our top quarterbacks in this year's NFL Draft and break it down. We're going to go top 10 style. So Dylan's going to give you one of his quarterbacks and tell you why he's at this spot. And then I'm going to flip it, go to my quarterback at that same number and tell you which quarterback that's going to be, and also my analysis on whatever quarterback that may be. So we may be talking about different quarterbacks in different spots and different positions throughout the top 10, but it's still a top 10 list. We're also going to be releasing individual scouting reports for each quarterback that are contained within this video, but it's just going to be a little bit more compiled and neat for you guys. So go check out those videos as well. Let's start off at number 10. Dilly Vanilli, give me your number 10.
Here we go. And by the way, we don't know. We know
each other's list.
We don't
at all. We don't know a single person. So go ahead, Dylan.
All right, number 10. I've got Clayton Thorson from Northwestern. He's a very tall guy, 6'4", 222, good frame, if you will. There's some things that I actually like about him. First off, his size is a good thing to see in the NFL. Again, this is not going to be a guy that's going to be a game changer, but you look at him, he's able to see the field really well. I like that about him. He can throw at a good distance. I'm not worried about his arm strength. There's a couple of guys here that I'm going to be a little worried about. It's not really he's not one of those guys for me. He can throw in the sidelines really well. That was one thing I was very impressed with. And overall, his control, his worth to Northwestern, guys that weren't very talented. He didn't have a whole lot of NFL talent on his team. It was a good thing to see him do well in that time. Weaknesses, his touchdown to interception ratio is about 1-to-1. It's not very good, one touchdown to one interception, not something I like to see. Last year, he threw 17 touchdowns, 15 picks. He gets a little anxious at times when the first person he sees on the field is not there. I've seen it when I saw Mitchell Trubisky. I'm not comparing them, but just in the statistic, is that when they see the first guy and it's not there, I got to figure something out very quickly. So he had 13 multiple interception games over the last 3 seasons. That's like Eli Manning numbers. I don't like seeing that. So he needs to keep control of the ball. Don't turn that ball over as much as he has. But he's a talent that I like putting it here into the number 10 spot because he's a very rough talent, but there are good things about him, especially his size, that I do like.
Sidebar, for my top 10, I have maybe 3 stats. I don't really care about the stats, bro. I'm just looking at how does this player play? How does he transfer to the NFL? I'm counting on you to bring the statistics.
Okay.
So I like those statistics. And I feel with Clayton, I'll be talking about him in just a little bit, but he is not my number 10. Okay. I have a player that is not on your list because I feel like he's being extremely overlooked because he's not a prototypical NFL quarterback. He's not a prototype in terms of what they look for in the NFL. But I do feel like this guy's skills were in certain categories elite enough to make him worthy of my top 10 in a class that I don't feel is overly fantastic. So at number 10, I have Gardner Minshew. The thing about Minshew is like what I just stated. He has some really elite things that he does. Like he's really good with his reads. He's really good with his eyes manipulating safeties. He's excellent in improving in terms of just running around and trying to make a play. Kind of reminds me of Baker Mayfield in that facet of the game of just being able to run around, create an extra couple of seconds behind the line of scrimmage, but still looking down the field and being able to make the throw. He makes great decisions. Why he's only number 10? He is not a special athlete. So a lot of basically his bad plays are because he doesn't have the throw power or the arm strength to put it on a player. So he doesn't really use his legs effectively in his throwing motion. He's kind of like a half throwing motion kind of guy. He uses like his arm and his top of his body, but he doesn't use his entire body. And you'll see the great quarterbacks in the NFL. They use their entire body kind of as a golfer would swing or as a baseball player would swing their bat. He basically only swings the top half of his body without turning his legs, which hurts him in terms of his throw power, his arm strength. And that also puts him in situations where he can throw some interceptions because he can't simply get the ball fast enough to his target. But I really like that he's a leader. He's tough. And the other concern for me is that he is small. Even though he's 6'2", he looks smaller than 6'2". And there's, on tape, it looks different than it can be in reality. But at the same time, there's certain guys that when they're 6'2", like a Jimmy Garoppolo, for example, who's around 6'2", he looks big. But Gardner Minshew, he looks closer to 6 feet, which kind of has me a little bit uncomfortable. But overall, I think he has some really, really nice traits along with his leadership skills that I think I would be willing to draft him very late in the draft. All right, at number 9, Dilly Vanilli, who do you have?
At number 9, I've got Buffalo quarterback Tyree Jackson. This is the guy that I feel is the biggest pet project for any team. They are going to have to put a lot of work into this guy, but I personally found him really enjoyable. Again, when we're watching these highlights of these guys, we have to figure out what the best things about them. And what he reminds me of is, this is a very hard explanation to tell you, but it's like when you're running a play action in Madden and you're just waiting a long time. You're waiting a long time to get that ball down the field, but you make that Madden play and you get that first down. Tyree Jackson feels like that guy. 6'7", 249. I mean, this guy is huge. He's just got a little bit of those mechanics that are a little bit difficult. Like, he has to build on those mechanics and to work. Again, he's very tall. He's got a huge arm strength because of how big he is, which is something that I like. He's going to be able to manipulate the safeties, knowing that, oh, well, I'm a big body, so I can throw it 40 yards down the field. But if I don't need to, here we go. Here's a first down, 2nd and 8 situation. So I like that kind of stuff there. He's actually a pretty decent runner. You wouldn't think for a guy that's 6'7", that big, he can run, but he's actually a really good runner. And again, some of these guys in the bottom lower level didn't play against the greatest competition. He played at Buffalo, so those things come in handy to know. But overall, I like seeing that kind of qualities. His weaknesses, 2 things that I really focus on are turnovers and completion percentage. I know that's not a thing, the second one especially, that Mitch focuses on, but he threw 12 touchdowns to 9 interceptions over the last 9 games. Not the strongest thing in the world, not like seeing that. And his career completion percentage is 55.8, which is really low, honestly, compared to some of these other guys. But he did have a good performance in the Senior Bowl. That's one thing I look at as well. He threw 2 touchdowns in that game, so that's a positive. And overall, again, a very hard pet project, but I know a team in the later rounds is going to be like, look at this athlete. I mean, what are we going to lose from a guy like this? And I just like seeing his highlights over some more guys that we have here on this list. So number 9, got Tyree Jackson.
At number 9, I have Tyree Jackson.
Hey, there you go. We agreed.
The thing about him is what you said there when you stated he is a project, but teams are going to take a chance on him in the draft. And the thing is, not only is he a project, not only is it worth taking a chance on Tyree Jackson, but it's worth it because this guy clearly really loves playing the game of football. At the combine, if you watch the combine for a minute with the quarterbacks, this guy was literally always smiling. After every drill, he would throw the worst pass ever. It would like hit the dirt and he'd be like, he was just fun. So like, I feel like a lot of coaches are just going to look at that as a guy that they kind of want to have in their locker room, whatever. He's very positive. He's a guy that's willing to learn. He's coachable. So for a player with all these raw skills, which I'll get into, he is very positive and he's a good guy just in general. So that's nice to have at the NFL level. So what is Tyree Jackson? I think Dylan did a pretty good job here of explaining it. He is absolutely humongous. He is very raw. He has a cannon for an arm. So he has a ton of arm strength, whether that's in the pocket or outside the pocket. There are a few plays with Tyree Jackson where you'll see him make some insane throws where it's like he'll run to the left or the right after like 10 seconds and he'll chuck it like 40 yards down the field flawlessly and it will connect with the receiver. There are other plays where he's sitting in the pocket untouched and he'll throw the ball straight in the dirt 5 yards in front of him. So he's very inconsistent when it comes to both his accuracy and his mechanics and understanding, what he needs to do to get the ball certain places to his receivers. His accuracy is all over the place, but when he's brought on. He is a big-time project, but he has a lot of potential, so he's worthy of picking and taking and keeping as a number 3 quarterback potentially. He has a long, winding release that kind of takes a little bit of time to get going. He's extremely athletic for a guy that's 6'7". He is really fast. Look at his combine numbers. He can create behind the line of scrimmage, hit throws, escape pressure. He's hard to take down because he's so big and so fast. So there's some of this Josh Allen there as well, but he's not like as good as Josh Allen, but he has some of that ability in his back pocket. He is pretty good at throwing off of platform. So whenever he's not necessarily set up in the pocket ready to throw, he's athletic enough to throw any which way he possibly can to get it to the receiver, which is a positive and also speaks to his athleticism. So Tyree Jackson, we both have at number 9. An interesting raw quarterback who has a lot of athleticism that could potentially be used at the next level. And with a good coach, we could see him come through and be a decent quarterback. At number 8, Dilly Vanilli, who do you have?
I feel like I'm going to ruffle some feathers here on number 8. I don't know, because I've heard people like this guy a lot, but I'm not 100% sold. Jarrett Stidham, the quarterback from Auburn, here at my number 8 spot. Auburn's offense last year was really hard to watch. Like, their offensive situation, their scheme was not really well put together. So in some aspects, I should be like, all right, well, Jarrett Stidham, maybe lay down on him, don't be too hard on him. But I also saw him struggle in the Senior Bowl, and he had a pretty bad combine, which is, again, things I got to look at here. In terms of positives, he is intelligent to make the defense think, okay, I'm just going to throw for this short pass, but no, really, I'm going to go deep. He's got decent size for what he's trying to do. He's a good runner. He really fits this SEC quarterback mold. Like, the first thing you kind of fit into it, obviously he played at Auburn, but I feel like an A.J. McCarron resemblance to it, which you can take that as you will. He does do really well in accuracy when he runs away from the pocket. I mean, again, he doesn't do it I shouldn't say he runs away a lot more than I like to see him do it, but he still makes good throws when he does it. So it's good stuff. You like the footwork out of him. The weaknesses. His drop-off in 2017 to 2018 was significant. Again, I know that's terms of offensive skill and what the team was doing around him, but just in his own quality, it went down pretty bad. I did not like seeing that stuff. His arm talent in terms of his power is not going to really beat you. I don't think it's going to be something that teams are looking forward to more than anything else. He can be indecisive. It looks like sometimes he struggles to make that second choice, to make that option better than it was. And overall, I just looked at the Auburn offense from one year to the next, and I was like, his draft stock went down to me. Like, if he had been the 2017 player, he could have been up to number 5 for me. But the way that I saw him play in 2018, the struggles that came out there, again, Auburn's a big school, so you're going to see them quite often, even though they fell down in rankings. So I just wasn't a big fan at the end of the year, and that's why I got him here at number 8. There are some good things to see about him. He's got that size that you kind of like, but overall, not the biggest fan of Jarrett Stidham here.
At number 8, Clayton Thorson. So Dilly Vanilli already discussed him. There's some good things. There's also some bad things. I think when you're talking about Clayton Thorson, I think I was going in expecting a little bit more when I was watching him, because last year he was kind of looked at as a player that could go potentially in the second, first round even. Like, he has the prototype kind of stature and the arm and everything like that, that you would think, okay, this guy is probably going to be decent at the next level and he's going to be highly scouted going into the NFL. But when you watch his tape from this year, he, of course, had the ACL injury going into this season, so that hurt him a little bit at the beginning of the year, which if you watched his tape at the beginning of the year, it was a lot worse than what it was at the end of the year. So that kind of is taken into account in just the fact that he looked a lot better at the end of the year. He is a big guy. He has a consistent motion, but he does kind of get too mechanical. And Mitch, what exactly does that mean? It just means that he kind of doesn't switch. Like, when he throws it the same way every time, no matter what type of throw it is. So sometimes you need to change the way you're throwing the football. Like, he doesn't change platforms, something that I said Tyree Jackson does very well. Or if you'll watch, like, an example in the NFL, Matthew Stafford is extremely good at changing platforms and throwing the ball or changing his arm angle. And Clayton Thorson does not seem to know what that is or how to do that. So he needs to work on that. If he works on that and gets a little bit looser in his mechanics, I think he could be a lot better, quite honestly. He has a nice presence in the pocket. He just seems like a quarterback. When you look at him, he seems like he's very confident. He's a pocket quarterback, definitely. He doesn't have a ton of speed. He started a lot of games. He started over 50 games, so that's nice. He has experience. He has a strong arm, but it's not like the strongest arm, but it's an NFL caliber arm. He makes some reads pretty well, but he does lack like big-time NFL throws through tight windows. I think Dylan pointed it out. He does kind of struggle with his second read. He kind of seems a little bit off in terms of just, okay, if my first receiver is not there, who do I go to? And I do have to point out that he did play on a really bad team. So a lot of that and a lot of his mistakes really comes from, I'm on Northwestern and I'm the best player on the team and I'm trying to do things on this team that if I was on another team, it would be a little bit easier for me to do. So I'm forcing the issue instead of just being patient, which I think doesn't help him at all. But I think at the NFL level could help him because he's not trying to do that so much. So overall, Clayton Thorson, I think, has a little bit of potential, but he is kind of also a finished product in the way that he started over 50 games. You kind of know what he is as a quarterback at this point. But if he can fix a little bit of his mechanics, I think he could be a pretty good backup in the NFL. All right, Dylan, at number 7, who do you have?
At number 7, I have a quarterback that you did not have on your list. Again, I showed
you have him this high. I totally forgot.
So Brett Rypien, the quarterback from Boise State, here at number 7. I was actually pretty impressed with what I saw from Brett Rypien. Again, Boise State's that school in the last decade. From a very small conference that's trying to make themselves a name. But now in 2017, 2018 land, Brett Rypien came as the quarterback, and I honestly came out pretty impressed with his talent. The thing is that in terms of what you see as him, it doesn't look like he's the NFL prototypical quarterback, but his intelligence is what makes it over the mark and puts him over to number 7, in my opinion. He feels comfortable when he's under center. He looks like he's ready to go. He has a nice release, which is something that I like to see. Again, the eye manipulation of what he wants to do with the safeties is always very nice. I don't think he's a great thrower when it comes to the outside. I feel like he's more with the slot receiver, the tight end kind of feel. I think that's what he does a little bit better. But he is a really accurate passer when it comes to the short passes, the intermediate passes, and the long passes. So you get a little bit of mix of all three. Kind of just depends on where you consider long, because he doesn't have the greatest arm. Like I said, a 40, 45-yard pass is where the max you're going to get it at. So, again, you see the flaws within it that you could, for a quarterback, you're like, oh, he doesn't have the greatest at this, or he's not the best at this. He did fumble quite a bit as well, which, again, not one of my favorite things to see from a quarterback prospect. But just looking at what he does, looking at the players that he had around him, it looked like the team really supported him. They were really willing to go make these catches for Brett Rypien, even though they weren't the greatest of throws, which shows me that he is a good leader for this team. Again, another small school, so when you have a quarterback that's a great leader, that's a big bonus. And overall, just a talent that I don't think is going to shock the world in terms of what he brings, if you will. It's more about the intelligence that I think has him an opportunity to be a backup here. So at number 7, I got Brett Rypien.
All right, at number 7, I'm going to get some people really mad at me because I know this guy has like this following right now where he's blowing up a little bit. Will Grier at number 7 for me.
Okay.
Now, I have many reasons why. I was not impressed with overall, like, people were telling me how great he was. A lot of people, as a Patriots fan, are saying the Patriots should draft him. I don't think he can be an NFL starting quarterback. The reason why I don't think he can be an NFL starting quarterback is because of his arm. I think he arguably has the weakest arm in this draft class in terms of arm strength, which at the NFL level, it looks nice in college when you're able to, which he does very well in terms of touch, accuracy. All that is really good. That's the best part of his game. But when you have an arm that is very below average in the NFL, all those mistakes start to add up. Defenses start to play you more aggressive towards the line of scrimmage. They press your receivers, get in your receivers' faces. The holes are not as open. They're a little bit tighter. The windows are tighter, and the players are faster. So if you're throwing a screen or throwing the ball out wide, a player is that much quicker if your arm is not strong enough to really get him going as a receiver. it's that big of a difference between, you know, a guy like Alex Smith and Tom Brady in terms of their arm strength. If Tom Brady throws it to a guy on the run, he might get 5 extra yards. But if Alex Smith throws it, he might only get 1 or 2 more yards, or he might get tackled at the spot. So that's the difference between the arm strength, and that's what I see with Will Grier in terms of that arm strength. And he physically just doesn't wow you. He's a little bit smaller. He has that weak arm. He did, which is surprising considering his arm strength, he had the most deep ball attempts and yards, which is one of the only stats I brought out here. This is a Pro Football Focus stat, but it's interesting because his deep ball, he throws it very high and lobs it up in the air. So he gives his receiver a chance to make a play, but it's not necessarily like he ever makes a line drive throw down the seam. He always kind of just plops it up there for a guy to make a play. And in college, there's nothing wrong with that. But in the NFL, I feel like there is. So there's a difference there. Again, I think his arm gets him in a little bit of trouble when it comes to decision-making. If he's going to throw to the guy, he might be open there, but you'll see it even in his film, okay? He throws it, and, the linebacker jumps the ball because his arm, he just can't get it there. He hangs onto the ball sometimes a little bit. I think he kind of has this over-the-top motion, which I think is where his arm strength comes from. His arm goes extremely over the top, which it lacks that crisp motion. And it looks, I don't know if you saw this, Dylan, you might be different from me, but it feels like every time he throws the ball, it looks like he's trying really hard. And when I'm looking for an NFL quarterback, I'm looking for just that quick, release, and I'm looking for it to be effortless. And with Will Grier, it looks very hard for him to throw some of these passes. He has okay athleticism. He has good eyes, good pre-snap recognition. He's smart. He seems to be a good leader. He's very fiery, which is all his good things about him. But I just don't see, because of his flaws in his game, that he can be a starting quarterback. I think he can be a backup, maybe even play a couple games here and there, maybe like a Brian Hoyer sort of guy. But I just don't see him being like a starter at any point for a regular basis.
Somebody's going to be pissed. You just compared him to Brian Hoyer.
I'm sorry, bro.
Well, this is interesting because at number 6, I've got Will Grier. So I feel like it's a pretty fair assumption. We're right around even with the level of what we got of Will Grier. Here's the thing. Coming into 2018, this guy, Will Grier, was hyped up as a Heisman candidate. I mean, they were building this guy up from the start. He started off pretty hot, but as the season went through, it was like, all right, well, here's these other quarterbacks, Kyler Murray came in and stepped up in Baker's spot, which we'll talk about later. Dwayne Haskins, a first-year starter, made it big time at Ohio State. What happened to Will Grier? What happened to all the hype around him? I mean, I think it fell pretty hard because of a couple of things. One, West Virginia's style of offense is really set up for Will Grier to succeed. They always play to what kind of quarterback that they have because it's Big 12. It's always focused on the offense more than the defense. Watched it for a decade. It's very hard to watch sometimes. But you obviously see it in college a lot more. It's going to be more offensive coordinated or oriented, I should say. So when I looked at Will Grier, I watched a couple of games because during the season, I was like, all right, these people are hyping him up. Let's see what he can do. And it seemed to disappoint me. I was like, this is the guy you're putting up here at number 3 quarterback? It just didn't really get me excited. The good things for him, he seems like he's a good locker room guy. He seems like people really can surround him with his team. He looks good. He made some pretty good plays in big-time situations against Texas and Oklahoma, especially in big clutch situations when he needed to. Weakness-wise, you brought it up. I think he has the worst arm mechanics in this draft class in terms of the top 10 quarterbacks. I think when he throws that ball, it really irks me sometimes. It was Sam Darnold last year where their throw mechanics and how long it took to throw the ball was just really awkward to me. And I don't like seeing that from a quarterback that's supposed to be so highly touted. With Will Grier, I see him as, some of the things just get sloppy when he's under pressure. He's also not a fighter when it comes to taking a sack. Some guys are just let it go. They'll just take the sack whenever. Some guys are really good at trying to make a play before they get sacked if they do, and Will Grier's on that bottom level. He does not try to move out of the pocket as much to avoid a sack. But all this hype for this guy, when I watched all of his highlights and rewatched some of those games that I had watched during the course of the 2018 season, just disappointed me. And I don't know, maybe he'll get, I feel like he's a 3rd-round talent. I don't know. People were going to be like, I can't believe that, but I feel like he's a third-round talent more than he is a second or even a first.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes later than the third.
Well, and also he had a really bad combine too. Him and Stidham had probably the two worst quarterback combines, so that's something to look at.
Speaking of Jarrett Stidham, I have him at number 6, which is a little bit higher than Dilly Vanilli. And the reason why is because when I watched Jarrett Stidham in 2017 and then going to 2018, I thought he was really solid in 2017, especially against really good opponents. Like he played against Alabama very well. He played against Georgia very well. And he had a couple of games where he was really efficient. You just saw the ball pop out of his hand. He had that offense going and moving along, and he didn't make a lot of mistakes, even for a younger guy at the position. In 2018, I feel like where you're saying he didn't impress you, I felt a lot of it was because of Auburn. I felt out of all these quarterbacks, he was always under pressure more than anybody, in my opinion. Constantly under pressure. The offensive line was really bad. Of course, he's playing against the best defenses in college football compared to some of these other guys that aren't. And then I felt like his receivers would let him down a lot. I feel like the offense is extremely basic. It's basically screen pass or play action. That's basically all Auburn ever does. But I feel like he does execute that to the best of his ability. And for me, most of the flaws that I saw from his game were not because of him. It was because of Auburn. So I'm very intrigued to see what he can do in the NFL, given a better offense, because I think he has a pretty strong arm. It's not Josh Allen, but it's strong. He looks like an NFL quarterback. I really like his presence, his confidence. He's really good in big situations. He's very good on the run, as Dylan brought up. He has very good accuracy at getting out of the pocket and hitting a guy along the sideline or moving down the field. He's very good at hitting a guy on the run, and he's athletic enough to do that. He's athletic enough to run on a design run play or athletic enough to escape pressure. And even against the best defenses in college football, he was able to do that. He has a nice deep ball. I think one of the better deep balls in the class. He really has good feel for the play action game. He did it a lot in Auburn. He took a lot of hits, and what impressed me about him is that he is tough. He doesn't really get hurt, or it doesn't hurt his confidence. He's tough. He bounces back and he finds a way to make a play, and he'll make it under pressure at times. Again, I don't think it was a great system at Auburn. I think it's very basic, and I think if he was on a different offense, he would have looked a lot better and would be going a lot higher in the draft because of it. And I'm very intrigued to see where he goes. But take a look at that 2017 tape, because he has a little bit better roster around him. He has a little bit, of a better offense in terms of just the talent. It just helps him a lot, especially on the offensive line. I'm not even talking about the running backs or receivers. Just the offensive line alone helps him a lot because he has a lot more time. And maybe that's one of his big negatives, is that he might be reliant on an offensive line at the next level. If he has a good offensive line and he is in there to play a game, if his offensive line's good, he might be good. But if his offensive line's not good, maybe he needs to learn how to play with a worse offensive line. So overall, I really like Jarrett Stidham. I think he's one of the sleepers in this class. I would not be surprised if he ended up being a starting quarterback. But I overall liked him more than I thought I would.
For number 5 here, I have got who I consider my most underrated quarterback that hasn't been talked about at all. Ryan Finley, the quarterback from
I totally agree with your underrated. Just wait, I totally agree.
This guy is not being talked enough. I mean, NC State, beginning of the year, again, as a college football guy, I watched quite a bit, and then you look at week 4 and you're like, NC State, it's number 23. Okay, they're climbing up the rankings. This is not a team that I expect to go very far, and they played some pretty competitive games over the year, and their biggest reason is a guy like Ryan Finley. He's got some really good attributes about him. His arm strength is pretty good. I would say it's near the top 5 of this class. His deep accuracy, though, I think has to be looked at, though. He doesn't throw it all the time very deep, but when he does, he's very accurate with the ball. Short to medium accuracy is very, very good, and I just like the poise that he gives off to me. He's giving me this good energy that I threw for 60 touchdowns in his career, also rushed for 5, so that's a little bit of a positive there. He can read the full field. He always trusts his receivers, which is always a very good thing to see from him, and he can stand in the pocket and take some pretty big hits, so I like seeing that. In terms of the weaknesses, I don't think there's a whole lot. He looks like sometimes he can be a game manager more than like a game changer, which is not the biggest thing in the world, but you need to see a little bit more of that as he gets to the NFL. Can force a ball when you know you don't want to see it, but he can force a ball to a receiver that you don't like. But overall, like, this guy really impressed me. If you just go look at the highlights, because I'm like, okay, Ryan Finley, who do we got here? And as I watched more highlights, I'm like, wow, this guy impressed me with how he's able to throw this one pass here. He's able to get connection with another guy here. He's able to get his receivers open in certain spaces I would not expect. I was really surprised to see Ryan Finley when I watched him, and that's what gives him the number 5. I think the least talked about prospect here that we should be talking about more.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that is why Ryan Finley is not my number 5.
Oh, he's even higher.
My number 5 is Daniel Jones, which I know Dylan loves Daniel Jones, I feel like. I just have this feeling.
We're going to talk about him later.
Daniel Jones. Okay, there are some things I really like, but the first thing that came to my mind and when I watched him was he has the most quarterback-friendly system of any of the players I saw.
That is true.
He throws 5-yard passes more than anybody in this entire class. Literally, I watched 3 games, Dylan, and it was like 5-yard out, 5-yard slant, 5-yard hook. It's like, dude, throw the ball fast 5 yards, man. Okay? All right? But he has the most quarterback-friendly system, a lot of short passes, and the funny thing is, a lot of his strengths match up with his weaknesses, because while those are weaknesses, they're also kind of strengths. He's a rhythm passer. He's good pre-snap. He can identify, okay, I need to go to this guy in the left slot. I see that weakness. I see the blitz coming to the left. I'm going to throw it there. But he never necessarily says, okay, I'm going to work downfield and then come back short. It's always 5-yard out. If it's there every time, I'm going to take it. Even if there's a chance I can hit the 20-yard post, I'm going to go to the 5-yard out instead. So that's something I don't like about his game, but also it's good in terms of, I think he's the one quarterback who is in the middle range that could come in this year and probably start, and you would be like, okay, it's not going to be horrible because he can get the ball out quick and he understands offenses. But at the same time, I don't think he's ever going to be like an upper echelon quarterback. I don't think the potential is super high, but he's reliable. So that's good. I think he has a big kind of cocked up motion a little bit. This causes a lot of batted passes at the line from what I watched.
Yeah, that's a big negative.
He can fight off tacklers very well in the backfield because he kind of has like this Peyton Manning build, and he even stands in the pocket a little bit like Peyton Manning. Before the snap, he goes like this, like Peyton Manning. But he is more athletic than Peyton Manning, and he can kind of fight off defenders because he has deceptive speed. You even see in his highlights, even if you just put on his highlights, not even game film necessarily, he'll run past people for long touchdowns. In college, that's going to happen, but it kind of impressed me because he was running past like secondary players, which in the backfield, like in the pocket, he doesn't seem quick or mobile, but when he actually gets a designed run, he's fast. So he's straight line fast, but he's not really agile. So that's something to keep in mind. He had a lot of receiver drops that I thought kind of hurt him a little bit. He has good touch, especially on fade routes in the end zone. He has average arm strength. I don't think it's great, but you never see him kind of force the ball down the seam or try and make that big time throw. There's just not a lot of game-changing throws, and that's why he's at number 5. He impresses you with his ability to recognize and read a defense in the short to intermediate range. But past that, he doesn't really show you that he can be a game-changing talent. And that, to me, is why he's at number 5. Plus, he's in probably the best system that I saw on tape.
I tweeted about this yesterday, about my most overrated quarterbacks.
I know it's coming.
I have given him a list of the last couple of years where my most overrated quarterbacks for every year since 2014. And it is time to make my selection for 2019. The most overrated quarterback to me, but my number 4 pick here, Drew Lock from Missouri. Here's the thing, all right? A lot of people are making big, bold comparisons. He's going to be a first-round draft pick, probably in the middle of the first round. But myself did not think he overly impressed me, and here's why. I feel like his biggest character trait is that he can throw the ball very deep. Like, I feel like that was the number one quality. I've heard people compare him to Matthew Stafford. And I'm like, whoa, like, chill out here. That's a huge comparison. Here's the strengths that I will say. He's obviously got the arm talent and the size to do what he can do, to be this number one, first round draft selection, I should say. His movements in the pocket are very nice. I like that. He can move and make sure that he's got another throw ready if he doesn't have the first one. He throws with anticipation, which means he's ready to go whenever it needs to be. And again, his eyes are pretty good. But here's the thing. He's frustratingly inconsistent when it comes to accuracy. I don't like when I see a quarterback do that more than once. Josh Allen last year, when I watched him from Wyoming in his highlights. Again, I've smoothed up to him in the year that we've talked about him. But when I saw him in his college highlights, I just saw this inaccuracy level that really ticked me off more times than I could watch. So I see the same thing in Drew Lock, and I don't know if he's going to be able to change it as quickly as Josh Allen did. He throws really hard footballs for short field. Like, he'll throw a bullet for a 7-yard pass that doesn't need to be a bullet, and that could lead to a couple of drops. When he's trying to move out of the pocket, his production really does kind of fall drastically in some cases, where he's trying to make this big play. You see the effort that he's trying to put in there, but then an edge rusher is just going to come in and swamp on him really quickly. And this is at the college level. You don't want to see that going into the NFL level. His poise and decision making didn't really flow with me as much as some guys were building it up to me. And he just didn't give me that vibe. Again, he had a better statistical year in 2017 than he did in 2018. Some guys had that. He threw 44 touchdowns and 13 picks in 2017 versus 28 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in 2018. And he played the same amount of games. So the production kind of went down from one year to the next. So you could say 2017 was the better one. But when I look into going into the draft, I have to look at the previous year a little bit more than his other years there. He did play all 4 years. That's good. I like seeing a little of the experience there. But overall, when I hear that your arm strength is your number one go-to, like that's the number one thing, I always feel a little skeptical. And then I look at what Drew Lock did for me in the highlight reel, and I just wasn't excited for what Drew Lock was supposed to be. Again, he's going to go in the mid-first round. I see what some teams are going to look into him. I feel like John Elway is going to love him. I don't know why, but I just got this feeling John Elway is going to go all over him.
John Elway only likes guys that are 6'7".
Oh, well, he just misses that range by about 3 inches. It's Brock Osweiler, Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch.
Flacco.
Oh, well, there you go, Flacco.
Right, there comes Dylan hating on arm strength once again. Another year, another hating on arm strength. At number 4, my favorite quarterback in the draft, Ryan Finley.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean I think he's the best. Obviously not. I have him at number 4. But my first note is I love this dude. My first note. Okay, so I think while I watched Kyler Murray before I watched Ryan Finley, I felt Kyler Murray, which we'll get into, has great touch. Ryan Finley has even better touch. I think he has the best touch, the best accuracy in the entire draft. He actually reminds me a lot of Tony Romo and Jimmy Garoppolo. He has a very fluid, quick release. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but he has very good placement with the ball. And he has that quick release, prototypical NFL motion. It's very consistent in and out. He really had a limited system. Now, this is where I compare Daniel Jones to Ryan Finley. I just felt like Ryan Finley made a lot more tight window, impressive throws on tape than I saw from Daniel Jones. Like, you would see a guy on a comeback with a defender all over him. Ryan Finley is placing that ball where only he needs to place it for his receiver to get it, while Daniel Jones, again, throwing the 5-yard out. And what impresses me more is the comeback, the fade, the out route, 10 yards, 15 yards. He's great in the 10 to 20 range. He had the most yards in college football in the intermediate range of the field. So to me, he is excellent. Back shoulder. He has just back shoulder throws. He's excellent at getting it to his receivers. And it just felt like Finley is one of those guys who's going to get your receivers open more so than your receiver even needs to get open. That's how good his ball placement was on tape to me. It's almost like if he's in a place where he can throw to guys like Alshon Jeffrey, I think he's going to do really well because if he gets a guy that's like a go up and get it sort of receiver, you saw him time and time again put it in that place for his receiver to get
Perfect
it. Even Sorry,
I was saying like the perfect spot that you could have it in.
No, like just playing with receivers like Alshon Jeffrey or like DeAndre, like these sort of like receivers that don't necessarily get open like right away, but they're big go up and get it receivers, like even bigger receivers with bigger frames, those sort of guys, because he can put it in that spot where, okay, this guy has a perfect opportunity to get it, but he throws him open to a certain degree. He has great feel and timing in the pocket. Even in an incompletion, I saw on a highlight, he's scrambling to the right, and his receiver is designed to run a out, and he throws the out, even on an incompletion, before the receiver breaks, understanding that that's where the receiver is going to go, and the receiver was open, but he just didn't have enough time to throw the ball, so he's escaping from pressure, throwing it on the run, and understanding that that guy is going to break. He had the anticipation to understand where he was going to go, and that to me is very impressive just in the fact that he understands what his receivers are going to do. Even when the play breaks down, he can still try and get the ball to that guy, and he's only throwing it in a place where his receiver can get it, and not necessarily where a defender can make a play on the ball. He also has subtle movement in the pocket, which I feel is very good, but I don't think he has the strongest arm, which I think hurts him a little bit. If he did, I feel like he would easily be in the top 3 for me. He has a lot of talking at the line, which I don't know, like whether that's because of him audibling at the line or if that's the coach. I don't really know, but yeah, I overall love this guy, Ryan Finley. I think he's extremely overlooked. I do not understand why people are not talking about him. And I think he's the one quarterback that on draft day, possibly in the second round even, we could see his name be called because scouts are going to start to pick up on him later in the process. And we haven't really heard about him to this point. So I think Ryan Finley's a name to really look out for.
Number 3, you got him at number 5, which, well, you know, I got Daniel Jones here. Now, I'm a bigger fan, obviously, of what Daniel Jones brings to the table than Mitch. But let me give you reasons as to why I think Daniel Jones should be at number 3, or why I think he's at number 3 and the best quarterback besides the 2 obvious ones that are going in the top 10. Yes, he did have a very good system at Duke. They really helped him out in certain situations. But I like the qualities that he brought. You brought up a couple of quarterbacks with their touch. I think Daniel Jones should be in this consideration. I think he has a great touch with the football. Really enjoyed what he could do. He's got early recognition when he's looking at the deep ball opportunities. Again, he's not going to jam it up there as hard as he can, but he's able to recognize when a guy's going for that out route or the fade or whatever it is, making sure that he can do it. You brought up the 5-yard passes. That is kind of the thing, but he's also got great accuracy with it as well. I know you should have that from 5 to 10 yards, but his accuracy on those kind of throws is good, especially even when it's under pressure. If a blitz is coming, he's still going to be able to get it to this tight end, get a good 7-yard gain, which I saw quite a bit of compared to some of these other quarterbacks. Completion percentage did get hurt by the fact that you brought this up as well. That his receivers dropped it quite a bit, which that's just kind of what happens with the team. He was still able to put it on target and make sure his receivers were there to go, but I liked what he was able to do otherwise, making good throws with them. And he's a really good scrambler. I mean, he could really run with the ball, not only just to get great runs. He ran for quite a bit of touchdowns and quite a bit of big runs in 2018. He was also able to scramble out and make sure that he's got a guy, even on 3rd and 5, to the sidelines. Boom, there's a first down because he's able to get out of there and not be exposed by what play is going on. So I like that about him. A couple of things. You brought down the batted passes. He had 12 in 2018, which kind of high. You don't like to see that all that often, every once in a while, but he's even taller than a guy you would think that have a batted down pass, like Russell Wilson. You think because of his size, he'd have more batted down passes, but it's not true. Daniel Jones had 12, and he's a taller guy, so that's not great.
I think part of it is, one, it's the way he throws the ball, as I said, and the second thing is that he tries to process the play and where he's going to go with the ball so fast that he throws it and it ends up getting batted because the defender's like, oh, you're going to throw it there. I'm going to put my hands up.
Right. And sometimes it can be a good thing for him to throw it very quickly. Other times, these 12 passes in particular, not so much. He's kind of thin when it comes to, like, if you look at his legs, that does help him in his running game. But when he's going to be able to take a hit, It's not really the greatest thing to see there. The window situation that you brought up with Ryan Finley, again, I also brought up in my comparison. He can throw it in really great windows. Daniel Jones is not the greatest in this category. He's kind of weak in this situation of trying to throw it in the right area. Ryan Finley's going to make an incredible throw to get his guys an opportunity, and I don't feel like Daniel Jones got it as much here. He can have a little bit of an opportunity where if there's pressure right in his face, the ball comes out, and I know you're going to take a bit hit, but you got to absorb that or at least hold on to the ball. Make sure it's going to be, a 6 or 7 yard loss compared to, we just turned the ball over. That's not great. But overall, when I looked at what Daniel Jones brought, because it's a guy from Duke, and when you think of Duke, you're like, oh, this isn't a football team. So you see a quarterback situation like Daniel Jones, a guy that's being highly brought up in the late first round, early second round situation. I'm like, all right, let's see what this kid can bring. And I just liked him. I liked what I saw more than Drew Lock. I feel like Drew Lock, I don't want to say one-dimensional in a way, but I felt like he was more set in one or two ways. And I feel like there was more dynamics to Daniel Jones, if that makes any sense. That's what I just saw personally in the highlight reel. I think Mitch will disagree with that, but I think there were some good things that I liked about him that people weren't talking enough. And I feel like a team should go out there, maybe like a Miami, something like that. I don't know if they're going to, but if they do, I feel like this would be a good opportunity to get one. Number 3, Daniel Jones.
My number 3 is Drew Lock. Drew Lock, I think, has the most potential behind Murray because of his strengths, because of that arm talent, because of that arm strength, because of the mobility, because of the athleticism. He reminds me, if I'm giving you a pro comp, he reminds me of Jay Cutler.
That's the best comparison we're going to give out here.
Well, I mean, if you're drafting Jay Cutler, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, Jay Cutler was decent. And then, he reminds me, I understand the Matt Stafford comparisons because he reminds me a little bit of Matt Stafford, a little bit of Jay Cutler. I feel like he's kind of like a little mix between the two. I don't think he's as good as Matt Stafford, but I don't think he's as bad in the bad ways as Jay Cutler. He has better decision-making than Jay Cutler, but I don't think his arm is as strong as Jay Cutler. But I think
Jay Cutler was insane when he could throw the football.
Oh, yeah. He could freaking launch the ball. Yeah. Looking at Drew Lock, he's athletic. He can run to throw. And I think more so he tries to run to throw than run. But when he has to run, he can run very well. He has very good arm strength. But I don't think it's not Patrick Mahomes type of arm, but it's very good. And I think he has this great ability, more so than maybe anyone in this class, of those different angle throws and the changing the platform in terms of, okay, my guy's over here, I'm going to throw sidearm. My guy is on a screen pass, but I got to get it around the defender. I'm going to throw it a little bit like this so I can get it in there. Or if I'm on the run and a pressure's coming in my face, I can change platform. I think Kyler Murray does this very well, but Drew Lock also does this very well, where he's off balance, but he's still able to throw it because of that arm strength, and he can get it into a space if he needs to. And I think those are big things at the NFL level that if you can do that, that's very impressive. Now, at the same time, he does these things even at times he doesn't need to do them, and it gets him in trouble. So, he won't fully get set, use his entire legs, and go forward fully into a pass, even when he has comfortable pocket presence. He just will, at times, even if it's like a 7-yard pass, he won't fully set his feet, and then the ball will end up going straight into the dirt, which is not a good thing, obviously. So I think the biggest thing with Drew Lock is if he can improve a little bit of his mechanics, I think he can be a very special quarterback. If he can go to a quarterback coach and figure it out a little bit and just improve his mechanics and the lower half with his legs to match his arm and his release, then I think he can be a very good quarterback and could be more consistent with the accuracy. And that's where I see, as opposed to some quarterbacks who simply don't have the arm to throw the ball, he has that even without using his full mechanics. So if he gets that all the way down and improves his accuracy because of that, he can become a very good quarterback. He has a good ability to improvise. His biggest thing, again, is accuracy is inconsistent. He has this sidearm delivery a little bit and kind of a snap of the wrist, which reminds me of Jay Cutler. And sometimes one of his flaws is that he is too quick to escape the pocket. He kind of, when he sees pressure, he'll run out to the right or the left to try and make a play instead of just taking a little bit of time, taking the hit and making the throw. But overall, I think Drew Lock has special athletic ability and is definitely going to get time in this league to start at quarterback because of that. It's just a matter of if he can fix those mechanics, get it down, and the experience will help him as well. So top 2 is pretty obvious.
Yeah, who's going to guess number 1 and 2? I can't believe it. Trace McSorley. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so here at number 2, I mean, I'm pretty sure.
Johnny Manziel?
I got the jersey on the bed. I'm not going to get it out, but I love it. Oh, man, the AAF is gone. It's so sad. All right, so number 2, it's all about who's going to be number 2 and who's number 1. But if you watch my video, which you should go check if you haven't already, you already know who I think is better and who I think is the worst of the 2. At number 2, I got Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback for Ohio State. Here's the thing. I don't like guys off the top that don't have a whole lot of experience. I'd like to see a little bit more coming into when you're coming into the NFL. Like, I don't like a one-and-done kind of situation. Again, he was a junior. I get it. He did play a little bit in 2017 too with the J.T. Barrett situation. So I get it. He played a lot, but this is his first year as a starter. And when you're coming into that kind of situation, you have a lot to prove, and you have a lot of things going into what you're supposed to show in your game. But overall, I was really impressed. Now, the first big game that I saw him play was against Penn State on that Saturday night game on ABC, and I was very disappointed at first. I was like, this is the guy we're all hyping up. This is the new Ohio State quarterback. I'm not really digging this guy. It was going on, and he was getting more focused into that starting role. Ohio State really started to work with him. They really started to gel and get better as time went on. And there's really a lot of good things to like about him. His size is the first thing that comes to mind. You look at the guy, you're like, this guy is built for the NFL more than I think almost any quarterback in this rankings. Even the number 1 guy I have here, just in terms of the size, that's how you feel a quarterback should be. I actually learned this today. He was being mentored by Mohamed Sanu. You knew that. If you guys didn't know that, that's very weird to me. But there you go. There's some guys already in the NFL are already liking his.
Do you mean like the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL, Mohamed Sanu?
Exactly. Yes, that Mohamed Sanu who threw, he like every completion until last year. It's fantastic. He showed really good potential when it comes to looking at the entire field, which is something that I really enjoyed looking at his highlights. His throwing motion, I think, is the best of this class. Again, there was a couple of quarterbacks that I mentioned before where I really did like their throwing motion. Like Will Grier was a big example of that. But a guy like Dwayne Haskins, his throwing motion, I think, is the best of this draft class. He can really make it explode with his throws down the field, whatever it is, intermediate, that kind of stuff. I really did enjoy. And when I was comparing him to Kyler Murray, there was stuff that was really close. I could have gone either way in picking those decisions, like the intelligence level, how much of a good leader he can be. It looked like he was a great leader just from that 1 year in Ohio State because they were able to build that character with him. So it was really good to see that. Weaknesses. There is some skepticism as to whether or not he can succeed so quickly because he's only had 1 great year as a starter. Maybe a second season would have helped. And you brought up, guys that didn't have as long enough time to get it done. I think Mitchell Trubisky is probably the biggest example because he also only had 1 year as a starter, but not a whole lot of big list guys that have only been able to do this for 1 year and get off to a hot start.
On that point, Dylan, with Mitch Trubisky, it didn't seem to matter in the draft. It's a big storyline going into the draft that he only played 1 year, but then he ended up going like 2nd overall, so it didn't seem to matter.
True. And some NFL teams would just be like, we're going to take the risk. Like, we do not care if you can do it. It just seems like you're getting it done. So when it comes to zone coverage, I saw that he struggled a little bit more than man-to-man. I felt like there were some times where he was trying to put it in the right areas, and it just didn't work out because of that coverage. I think he needs to read that a little bit more. Pressure situation, he was good under pressure in some situations, and Ohio State's offensive line was really good, but other times, he's not going to run the ball. Contrary to what Stephen A. Smith will tell you, he's not going to run the ball whenever necessary. So getting that situation for him, it's all about can he make the big throw before that pressure gets in his face because he's not going to be able to run away from it. Some raw talent here you have to develop and make sure that he's in the right system. I brought this up in my quarterback, which is better video. You need to make sure that he's in a really great system. Which is why I feel like, even though I'm a Cowboys fan, I feel like the Giants need to get Dwayne Haskins. Like, I feel like that's going to be the perfect fit, the perfect situation for this guy. I feel like that's going to be the best case scenario. Again, they're not very smart, so they're not going to do it. They're probably going to draft Drew Lock for all I care. But I feel like this is going to be the place where he can really develop, can really shine, and make sure that he can get his stuff going. So at number 2, I got Dwayne Haskins. I wasn't a big fan of him when we started this process or when I started looking at him in the 2018 season when it was going on. But as more time has gone on, I really enjoyed it.
At number 2, I have Dwayne Haskins. Now, the first thing Dilly Vanilli brought up was size. Now, a lot of people are saying, Mitch, Dylan, why in the heck does size matter? Well, watch Dwayne Haskins, okay? He is tough, okay? The reason he is tough is because he is big. When you're that big and a guy is coming at you and you know you are going to get absolutely annihilated, you're saying, hey, I'm 6'6", whatever, how many pounds I am, I don't care. I'm going to throw the ball anyways because I know I'm going to be able to take this hit. That's Dwayne Haskins. My best trait for Dwayne Haskins is that he is tough. He has a good pocket presence. He's willing to take the hit, and he'll make the throw taking the hit. I actually compare him a lot to a mix between Nick Foles and Ben Roethlisberger. He's kind of big. He's kind of immobile, but he's tough, and he'll make those plays within the pocket. And he also is hard to take down because he's so big. Then we go to the other trait that I wasn't expecting to see from Dwayne Haskins because knowing that he was only a one-year starter, I was kind of thinking, okay, this guy's going to be raw. He's going to have the big arm, which he does. He's going to have the prototypical size, which he does. But he is very intelligent. I think he is the smartest quarterback in the draft in terms of pre-snap recognition, understanding where to go with the ball, and making a play and getting the ball to his playmakers in the right situation. And even towards the end of the season, you saw him audible at the line or make a switch in the play, even for a one-year starter, which is extremely impressive. And let's be honest, Dylan, a lot of times when it comes to quarterbacks of Dwayne Haskins' skin tone, we hear that these guys are not smart. That is not the case about Dwayne Haskins. He is very intelligent, and he goes through his reads. And the biggest thing to me is he's a very good processor. So he's smart, but it's before the snap even. Like, when you talk about smart quarterbacks in the NFL, think about Tom Brady or Drew Brees. They know where they're going to go the ball 90% of the time before the ball is even snapped. So that is what Dwayne Haskins started to do later in the season, and that's where you saw him really improve. Now, he can get in trouble because of that. There'll be plays where, okay, he knows he's going to go over to the right sideline, and he'll throw it there, and it's a nice play because, wow, that was a really nice decision. He gets the ball out very quickly, and it's a rhythm, and he'll start to go in a rhythm, and it looks very good, and it's surgical almost, and you'll just see this tempo that Ohio State's able to play with because Haskins gets them in this tempo, gets them in this rhythm because he's very surgical. He's going to go here, he's going to go here, but then occasionally you'll see him get confused by a defense because he's so young and inexperienced that he'll say, oh, I see him open, I'm going to go here because I know he's going to be open. I see that corner's blitzing. There's one play in particular where a corner's blitzing off the right, and he doesn't see that a linebacker is going back in zone coverage, and he throws the ball there even though he didn't see the linebacker, and the linebacker is able to make a play on the ball. So once he is able to learn that, to go fully through that processing and to be able to see that linebacker as the play is going, I think he's going to improve even more insurmountably. So he excelled versus man-to-man. I agree, Dylan. He did struggle more against zone, but he was excellent against man-to-man. He has good downfield accuracy. He just seems like a really good guy and a really good leader. And from everything I've heard, he's a really cool guy. Even if you follow him on social media, he seems to be doing all the right things. And I think he's a guy that you would want to have as your franchise quarterback. I'm sold on Dwayne Haskins. I know a lot of people after that 1 year still a little bit skeptical. To me, I really like him. I really like his smarts. I really like his ability. And I think he is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And at number 1, Dylan Vanilli. Okay, can I say this, Dylan?
Go ahead.
I have a note here. Okay. How anyone could think he is not the top quarterback is puzzling.
It's asinine, honestly.
Just watch 3 games. Pick any 3 games.
Any game that he
and you'll be like, that guy's the best. I only had to watch 4. I barely watched anything. I was just like, this guy, I know. Like, I just watched the games against the best opponents, and I was like, yeah, okay, Kyler Murray's number one.
Here's the thing, right? I watched him in high school. He lived like his high school was 5 minutes away from mine. So I watched him play at Allen. They won like 3 consecutive national championships. They never lost anything, not national championships, state championships. So he was crazy good in high school, and he was very highly touted. He went to A&M, didn't really get the start. There was a whole, wrongdoing with the A&M system. Didn't really work out. Kevin Sumlin, all this stuff. So then he went to Oklahoma, backed up Baker Mayfield for 1 year. Everybody was talking about in that 1 year that like Baker's going to the NFL in 2018. Is Kyler Murray going to be able to step up? And then of course he freaking did. Did you watch him last year? I mean, this guy was insane. He is freakishly athletic. Like, not in terms of his size. We're going to bring that up in the negative column. But in terms of his strengths, you just look at the guy like, oh my God, he's so dynamic. He's so quick with the ball. He's so, he's so able to get this thing done in key situations, like he brought up in the big games, like huge games. I know he didn't win against Alabama in the college playoff semifinal. It was a really disappointing performance, but you saw what he was capable of just based on not only his arm, but his running ability. He rushed for 10 touchdowns last year. Do you hear a lot of guys doing that in 13 games? I don't really think so in this day and age. Again, it's college. It's a very different thing. He won't.
Unless your name's Cam
Newton. There you go. Unless your name's Cam Newton. I don't think you're going to see that very often in the NFL, but if he's able to do that, it's fantastic. And maybe Dak Prescott, he got 6 touchdowns last year. Anyways, big strengths. He doesn't seem like he gets rattled. Like, he doesn't seem like a guy that can get phased in these situations. He just always seems like the same high-energy guy all the time. He really can be a dual threat because you see just how far he can throw the ball. For a guy his size, throwing 55-yard passes, you're like, wow. That's crazy, especially some of these guys that are way taller than him and look more in that NFL quarterback shape, and they can't even throw it as far as Kyler Murray. It says something. It really does. Oklahoma, again, like I brought up with Will Grier in West Virginia, is always built for this offense, this very pass-heavy offense. So a guy like Kyler Murray is going to benefit, but he went and did basically the same thing Baker Mayfield did, just in a completely different fashion, which was really impressive to see. Like, you look at a play from Oklahoma, you can take any game you want to on a highlight reel, and you're like, wow, it just looks so effortless for them because they know they got a quarterback, they can get it done. And there's just so many more positives than negatives. He did only have 1 season as a full starter. Again, we're not bringing that up with Kyler Murray. Or we're bringing it up with Dwayne Haskins, but we're not really bringing it up with Murray. He's only had that 1 year at Oklahoma, and he's short. He's 5'10". I believe Russell Wilson is 5'11". That's the biggest NFL comparison, so he's a little bit shorter. But the good thing is that, batted down passes don't really mean anything in terms of the height of these guys as well, because Russell Wilson doesn't have that many, and Kyler Murray didn't have it in his 1 year. So I feel like those are the biggest negatives, and I feel like some teams are going to be like, oh, we can't take that risk with a guy like him. But if you look at the athleticism, you look at the freakish nature, I mean, we're seeing a guy that can really, be a generational talent. Like, I'm just putting that out there. I really like what I saw from him last year. If anybody says that he's not the best quarterback in this draft, I don't know what you're watching. Like, I really don't know what you're watching at this point. You got to look at the talent. You got to realize what you see in front of you. The guy that won the Heisman, I think rightfully so, and did a really stellar job at leading Oklahoma to what he did. So, number 1, Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I don't think the Russell Wilson comparisons are that far off. I think it's very similar in terms of their playing style, and I'm very excited to see Kyler Murray at the NFL level, and I'm glad that he chose football because this guy is special, I think. He has phenomenal touch on passes. Probably, like, him and Finley, I think, are very close in that regard. He has probably the best anticipation of understanding where a receiver is going and hitting him in stride. He has very good arm strength. It's right there with Drew Lock. I think in terms of on the run, it's better. And when he's on the run, he can kind of do a Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson baseball sort of throw where he just like slings it and he's still able to get it there because he that baseball background comes in handy in that regard.
Yep.
He has really good touch inside the numbers on seam throws, because the combination of arm strength and touch comes in when he's hitting like a slot receiver down the middle of the field. He has great instincts in the pocket and ability to feel the rush, not even just as a scrambler, but just to maneuver his way in the pocket and find a way to step up or step back and get out of the way from a rusher and be able to still throw. He always is looking down the field to throw, which is something that when you talk about a guy like Kyler Murray, that's the first thing that people will start to talk about is, oh, how is he in the pocket? Can he throw from the pocket? Can he make plays from the pocket? That's still something that Russell Wilson people think that's part of his weakness, which I don't think so. But, I mean, Kyler Murray, people are still going to question that because of the style of quarterback he is, because of that stigma. But that's not the case. He still looks down the field. He throws. And there's plays against Alabama in particular where they're only rushing 3, and he has 15 seconds to throw the ball. And he waits forever to throw the ball. He waits forever to run. So that, to me, just shows you that he's very patient with his reads. He's very patient at throwing the ball, and he'll only make the right decision to rather run or throw. And he'll always look to throw before he runs. When he does run, he not only has great speed, but he has great vision. I think he's a better runner than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is I think Lamar Jackson's faster, and he's like a better pure runner in terms of he's more of a running back, Lamar Jackson.
And that's the biggest thing. That's what helps Kyler Murray more, is that you feel like Lamar's just going to run. You know what I mean?
Kyler Murray is more like he has the vision to see where to run. Lamar Jackson's just like, okay, I see a hole, I'm going to run. Like, I'm going to sprint as fast as I can. Kyler Murray's like, okay, I'm going to kind of like maneuver my way. More like Michael Vick, where it's like, okay, I'm going to go here and here.
I'm glad you brought that name up.
Yeah, so that's the kind of way he runs, and he's very good at it, obviously. And he's very fast. You can tell just because he's running past Alabama. So if he can run past Alabama, he'll probably be able to run in the NFL. He has a good ball fake on play action. I think something that's not really being talked about is the fact that he is going to scare defenses to only rushing 3 players because of his legs. You'll see it with Russell Wilson or with Deshaun Watson. Just watch the Patriots play them, for example. So the same way that Alabama did against Kyler Murray will see those same looks. And that kind of helps the rest of the offense because it helps the offensive line out. It helps other teams that knowing that they're going to contain him or try and keep him in the pocket. And that makes the defense one-dimensional because they're not going to be able to kind of tee off at the quarterback. So that's something that I think is being underlooked. In terms of his negatives, there are not many. I think one that Dylan didn't bring up is that in terms of his size, it's not just that he's small, it's can he hang in there physically? Like if he gets hit a lot, is he going to be able to stay on the field? Is he going to be able to have the toughness and just the pure physical ability to stay on the field and not get injured? Because when you're that small, being hit by 300-pound guys, that's not an easy thing to do. So, like, while Dwayne Haskins is the exact opposite, Kyler Murray may get a little bit more injured just because of that. I think his personality was always a detriment to him in terms of this pre-draft process. He had some very awkward, interesting interviews. I don't know if that's really going to be taken into account because I think Arizona's going to draft him regardless. But it's something interesting where at the first overall pick last year, a guy that was smaller, Baker Mayfield, was really known for having a great personality, a guy that was very much a leader. Kyler Murray, I don't really see that same thing with him. He's quiet. He's kind of to himself. And I just think he's not the prototypical fiery guy, which some teams might not like and some teams might be fine with. But that's something that I'm kind of like putting a question mark beside. What is he like as a personality?
Yeah, it definitely needs to be opened up. And considering the last #1 pick is as out there you go, as Baker Mayfield, it's quite a difference.
Yeah, so that's our top 10 quarterbacks, Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
I think we went at length there.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't so immensely different. We only had one guy on both of our lists that we didn't, each other didn't have, so that was pretty good. And we got a couple of different opinions, so I like that. It's not all just similar in that way.
Yeah, but I hope you guys can find a way to watch some of these quarterbacks before the draft, figure out who you like, figure out who you dislike, and understand where we're coming from with our analysis. Now, we're not NFL draft scouts. We're not former NFL players or anything like that, but we'll try our best. We watch the tape. We give you our analysis, and we try to be as professional as possible. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think. Do you think we're spot on with some of our picks? Do you agree more with Dylan, or do you agree with more with myself? Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But again, guys, the crucial thing is comment below your opinion because we want to hear it. Also, check out the independent videos of our scouting reports, which will be contained from this video. But go check those out. Support the channel. Gronk spike the like button over there. Share these videos with your friends. And I'm sure that if you're trying to get your friend informed in the NFL draft, this is a good way to start. Send them this video. We got all the details on all the quarterbacks, so that's all you really need to know. Dylan, do you got anything left to say on this?
No, like you said, go check out those videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. You know, it was our best month in the month of March, so let's hope we can keep that ride going. And a lot more draft content. We have 8 more positions to talk about when it comes to these top 10 lists, so you don't want to miss those out.
The next position will be the edge position. So Nick Bosa and the boys will be out next, and we'll see where those players rank. The quarterback always starts the conversation because it's the quarterback position, but the edge position is the most talented in this year's draft. So we'll check out where we rank those special guys this year. All right, guys, thanks for watching. It's been Mitch, Dilly Vanilli of The Bottom Line View. We'll see you next time. Deuces.
Peace.